Got one question I know to kick off from Martin Brickley from Eastern Bartonshire. Where are you, Martin?
Good afternoon, panel. Can you hear me? Yep. I would like to ask, council tax should be replaced with a fairer tax based on ability to pay and not based on the value of your home. What system would your party introduce to make it fairer?
Sylvia.
Okay, well, I'll start off first of all with the independent inquiry which was set up, the Burt Committee. And what it decided was that the fairest way was actually a property tax. They called it a local property tax, which was different to what, in fact, the Labour Party are suggesting in terms of putting more bands into the system that we have at the moment. So what was proposed in the manifesto on Tuesday was that we should have 2 bands instead of 1 at the top end and 2 bands instead of 1 at the bottom end, so that, in fact, people at the lowest level, in fact, would be advantaged, and obviously there would be more money coming from the top end. The reason why, in fact, the Burt Committee did not go for a local income tax was because they didn't see it as a fairer system, and that's why they went also for a property tax. Theirs was much more graduated, though, and so, in fact, it was directly linked incrementally with the price of your property. So that is my party's decision to keep with a property tax, but to modify it to make it fairer.
I think that after 8 years of Labour and Liberal Democrats being in power, to not have done something early on in that Parliament about the council tax quite plainly is disgraceful. Now, what the SNP are going to do, we abstained on Tommy's bill because we thought there were technical faults with it, not the principle, not the principle. The principle of a tax based on ability to pay is sound and absolutely right. And what we will do in the first 2 years is freeze the council tax, because you've got to get the mechanics in place for the income tax, abolish it completely, so that 90% of pensioners will either pay less or absolutely nothing at all because of their income level, and thereafter it will be threepence on income tax. So if you're not paying any income tax, you won't be paying for that either. And in due course, to let it go down to a local level where local councils will operate their rate of income tax.
Graham Brown.
Yeah. Of course, the main problem with the council tax is the way it's been ramped up year in, year out, a few percentage points more than inflation. And over a long period, that is a very significant rise. And we the Conservatives recognise the particular difficulties that has had on pensioners and senior citizens, and that's why we have a policy of a 50% discount, not a means test, not a humiliation where you have to go and show all your bank statements and tell the officials how much money you've got in your pocket, an automatic 50% discount for pensioners. But there is a problem with the local income tax. We also have to remember hard-working families. If you take a couple on average salary in Scotland earning £22,000 a year each, they would be paying a total of £2,000 with local income tax. It's almost a doubling.
Andrew Arbuckle, what's your policy?
I think alone among all the parties here, we are in favour of a purely local income tax. Don't be fooled by the SNP. That's a centrally arranged tax that will be distributed locally. As far as the Liberal Democrats are concerned, it is a local income tax. We want to give more responsibility to local representatives, to local government, and actually make them more, devolve power down to them.
You would have varied local income taxes immediately from area to area, from different council to council.
Yes.
No wonder people don't vote, Leslie, because I'll tell you what you've just had is an example of what's wrong with politics as far as I'm concerned. People talk a right good game, but see when it comes to delivery, they're absent. 8 years we've had the Scottish Parliament, 8 years. We've got the SNP sitting there telling us they're for local income tax. We've got a Lib Dem sitting there telling us for the local income tax. In the last 8 years, how many bills have been introduced into the Parliament to abolish the council tax? 1. I know that because I was the one who introduced it.
Can we hear from Jack?
Thank you, Ray. I agree fully with Tommy. We are against the council tax. No question about it. When you think of the high earners who only pay 1% of their earnings to council tax, where pensioners on the fixed income pay 20% of their income on council tax. Let's be fair, it's not a fair tax. Stop it, cancel it now.
Jack, did you ever think of joining Solidarity?
So that you not think to come to us.
Well, that's true too.
Tomorrow's pensioners.
Robin Harper.
Thanks, Lizzie. The reason why I abstained on Tommy's bill was we were worried about it being centralised, because that's taking power away from local councils. We're worried about the Lib Dems because we don't quite see how it works. We'd be more tempted by it if we could see it really working. And certainly, we don't like the limits that they have in terms, they're limiting the power of councils. The suggestion that we have, that would be no tax is absolutely fair, but it would be fairer, is a tax called land value tax, which they do use in certain parts of the United States.
Supposing I'm living somewhere and suddenly Marks and Spencer's and Habitat come within 100 yards of me, and what I was sitting on, which was perhaps not very valuable land, suddenly rockets in price, and I'm a pensioner and I've got no more income, but the land is more valuable. What happens to me then?
It can be worked in land value taxation by assigning uses to land. So if the use to that land is for housing, and if the use to that land is for pensioner housing, because this is how the tax can be adjusted, then you would not be affected.